The myth becomes reality. The crystalline spires of the Zanari Confederation's capital world gleamed under three suns as Supreme Chancellor Vexus addressed the assembled representatives of 47 species. His tentacled form undulated with confidence as holographic projections filled the vast assembly chamber. The topic today would settle a debate that had plagued the galactic community for over 2 millennia. Distinguished colleagues, Vexus began, his translator rendering his ultrasonic speech into hundreds of languages simultaneously. After exhaustive investigation spanning 500 cycles, the Historical Truth Commission has reached its final verdict. The so-called human species was nothing more than wartime propaganda, created during the Second Galactic Conflict to justify the use of forbidden weapons. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Some delegates exchanged knowing glances while others shifted uncomfortably in their varied forms of seating. The human question had haunted their civilization since the earliest days of interstellar travel, when ancient ruins and cryptic warnings were found scattered across dead worlds. We have analyzed every piece of supposed evidence, Vexus continued, his voice carrying absolute authority. The burned worlds, results of natural stellar phenomena, the derelict stations, built by the extinct precursors, the warnings carved into asteroids, psychological warfare from our own ancestors. There is no credible proof that bipedal apex predators called humans ever existed. Ambassador Threek of the Corvani stood, her chitinous body clicking as she moved. What of the stories, Chancellor? Every species has tales of the pale warriors who fought without mercy, who turned entire systems into graveyards rather than surrender. Vexus waved 3 tentacles dismissively. Stories evolve, Ambassador. Fear needs a face, and our ancestors gave it one. They created the perfect enemy, ruthless enough to unite us, mysterious enough to never be disproven. Until now. The vote was unanimous. By decree of the Zanari Confederation, humans were officially classified as mythology. Their stories relegated to the same category as space dragons and cosmic demons. The assembly dispersed, satisfied that another old superstition had been laid to rest. 3 systems away, Commander Krell of the Zanari Survey Corps stared at his ship's sensors in confusion. His mission to map the Forbidden Sector, a region avoided for thousands of years due to ancient navigation warnings, had just detected something impossible. Energy readings were spiking from a supposedly dead planet, Kepler 442b, patterns that matched no known natural phenomenon. Specialist Morek, confirm these readings, Krell ordered, his 4 eyes focusing on different displays simultaneously. Morek, a young Zanari whose tentacles had barely darkened to adult coloration, ran the scans again. Confirmed, Commander. The energy signature is artificial, but it's using a frequency modulation we've never seen. It's almost like it's trying to hide from our sensors. Krell made a decision that would change everything. Set course for Kepler 442b. Whatever's down there, it's been hidden for a very long time. The Confederation needs to know what's in the Forbidden Sector. The descent through Kepler 442b's atmosphere was rough. Electrical storms raged across the planet's surface, but they seemed almost deliberately placed, forming a protective barrier around specific coordinates. When they finally broke through, what they found defied explanation. A massive complex stretched before them, partially buried under millennia of sediment but still visible. The architecture was unlike anything in the Confederation's databases, angular, efficient, built for function over form. Strange symbols marked every surface, and at the center stood a monument that made Krell's blood run cold. It was a statue of a bipedal figure in a spacesuit, one arm raised toward the stars. At its base, symbols that their translator struggled with before finally rendering: Fort Liberation, United Earth Defense Command, abandoned by Protocol 7, 2456 CE. Commander, Morek whispered, CE. That's an unknown dating system. Our xenoarchaeology AI is estimating this site is over 2,500 years old. Before Krell could respond, their landing disturbed something deep within the complex. Power systems, dormant for millennia, began their activation sequence. Emergency lights flickered to life in patterns that suggested vast underground facilities. And then, from speakers that should have been dust, came a voice speaking in perfect modern Zanari. Warning: you have entered a restricted Earth military installation. This facility is protected under the Sol Accords. Your presence has been logged. Distress beacon activated. Please state your authorization code or prepare for defensive measures. Krell felt his tentacles go rigid with fear. Earth. Sol. These were words from the old stories, the myths they had just voted out of existence. But here was proof, ancient and undeniable, that humans were real. We don't have authorization, Krell managed to say. We're explorers from the Zanari Confederation. Humans are. Humans haven't been seen for thousands of years. We thought you were extinct. The voice paused, and when it returned, it sounded different, less mechanical, more aware. Humans extinct? Interesting. Updating threat assessment. You are trespassers on human territory. By entering this facility, you have violated the Treaty of Shadows. Initiating Protocol 77 Alpha. All human assets will be notified. Deep beneath their feet in bunkers that extended for miles underground, quantum transmitters activated. They sent signals not through normal space, but through dimensions the Zanari hadn't even discovered yet. The messages traveled instantly across impossible distances, reaching listening posts that had been waiting patiently for this exact moment. In the cold void between galaxies, where no sane species would think to look, massive structures hidden in the cosmic dark began to power up. The humans had never gone extinct. They had simply decided to stop playing the game, withdrawing to spaces so remote that other species forgot they existed. But they had left watchers, automated systems designed to alert them if anyone ever disturbed their old territories. Commander Krell ordered an immediate evacuation, but it was too late. His ship's communications array was already broadcasting everything back to the Confederation, including the activation of the human beacon. Within hours, the entire galaxy would know that humans were real, and more terrifyingly that someone had just woken them up. The AI voice, which had identified itself as Cerberus, continued its announcements. Treaty violation logged. Human colony worlds currently occupied by Zanari Confederation, 47. Human stations destroyed or salvaged, 342. Human archaeological sites desecrated, 1,847. Calculating appropriate response. Krell tried to reason with it. Please, we didn't know. We thought humans were myths. We can negotiate, establish peaceful contact. Negotiation. Cerberus processed the word carefully. Humans attempted negotiation 2,543 years ago. Result: betrayal by 17 species, loss of 3 billion human lives, forced exodus from galactic civilization. Negotiation is no longer a primary protocol. As Krell's ship lifted off, racing to warn the Confederation, sensors across the forbidden sector began detecting movement. Ships were emerging from hidden bases on moons and asteroids, vessels that had been sleeping for millennia. They were small at first, scouts and probes, but behind them, Krell's advanced sensors could detect something massive moving in the darkness between stars. The Zanari Confederation had spent so long convincing themselves that humans were fairy tales that they had forgotten why their ancestors had been afraid. They had forgotten the warnings carved into ancient stone, the reason entire sectors were marked as forbidden. Humans hadn't been myths. They had been sleeping, waiting for someone to be foolish enough to wake them. And now, across the void, in a place so far from the galactic core that light itself seemed to forget it existed, Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus. Not a colony ship, but a battleship the size of a small moon. Around her, the entire human refugee fleet received the message from Cerberus. 2,500 years of exile, of building, of preparing for the possibility that they might need to return. All ships, Admiral Chen announced, her voice carrying, to over 10 million humans across thousands of vessels. The beacon has been activated. The Zanari have violated the Treaty of Shadows. They've occupied our worlds and claimed we never existed. She paused, looking at the star charts showing their old territory now entirely controlled by the Confederation. It seems the galaxy has forgotten why we left. Perhaps it's time we remind them. The human fleet began to move slowly at first, like a giant awakening from a long sleep. They had spent their exile not just surviving but advancing, developing technologies that the comfortable civilizations of the Milky Way couldn't imagine. They had learned to harness dark energy, to fold space itself, to build weapons that could unmake stars. But more importantly, they had learned patience. The humans returning weren't the desperate refugees who had fled genocide. They were something far more dangerous, a species that had been given time to prepare, to plan, and to decide exactly how they would respond to those who had driven them away. As the first human scouts entered the Milky Way, they transmitted a simple message on all frequencies. Humanity remembers. When legends return, the Zanari War Council convened an emergency session as reports flooded in from across their territory. Chancellor Vexus, who just days ago had declared humans mythology, now faced the greatest crisis in the Confederation's history. Holographic displays showed the approaching human fleet, though their numbers and capabilities remained mysteriously obscured by some kind of interference field. "How many ships?" Vexus demanded, his tentacles writhing with anxiety. Intelligence Chief Gorix consulted multiple data streams. "Unknown, Chancellor. Their technology creates sensor echoes. We could be looking at 100 ships or 10,000. What we can confirm is that they're using propulsion methods we don't understand. They're crossing distances that should take months in mere days." General Maxer, Supreme Commander of the Confederation Fleet, interjected with typical military bluntness. "Chancellor, we must strike first. We have 40,000 ships across our territory. Whatever the humans have, we can overwhelm them with numbers." "You fool." Ambassador Threek clicked her mandibles in agitation. "You want to attack a species we know nothing about? They survived somewhere for 25 centuries, developing who knows what technologies. The prudent course is communication." Before anyone could respond, every display in the chamber flickered. The lights dimmed and a figure appeared in the center of the room. Not physically present, but a projection so real that several council members stepped back. It was Admiral Sarah Chen, and she looked nothing like the monsters from their ancient tales. She was older, perhaps 60 Earth years, with gray streaking through black hair pulled back in a simple style. Her uniform was practical, not ornate, and her eyes held a weariness that spoke of burdens carried too long. When she spoke, it was in perfect Zanari, though no human should have known their language. "Chancellor Vexus, members of the War Council," she began, her tone formal but not hostile. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Exodus Fleet. We received your Commander Krell's transmission. You've discovered one of our old outposts and triggered its automated systems. I thought it best we speak before misunderstandings occur." Vexus found his voice first. "You're trespassing in Confederation space. These territories have been ours for millennia." Chen's expression didn't change. "Those territories were human colonies before your Confederation existed. We have archaeological evidence, genetic markers in the soil, and quantum signatures that prove our prior claim. But I'm not here to debate ancient history. I'm here because you need to understand something important." She gestured, and the holographic displays changed, showing a star chart of the entire galaxy. Red dots appeared, thousands of them scattered across every sector. "These are human survivors, Chancellor. Not ships, people. When we fled, not everyone made it to the Exodus fleet. Some hid, went underground, integrated into your societies. They've been waiting, watching for 25 centuries. The implications hit the Council like a physical blow. Humans living among them, hidden in plain sight for thousands of years. It was a security nightmare beyond comprehension." "Impossible," General Maxer snarled. "We would have detected them." Chen actually smiled, though there was no humor in it. "General, we evolved on a death world where deception meant survival. We've had plenty of practice hiding from predators, but that's not why I'm here." The displays changed again, showing massive structures being constructed in dark space. "We didn't spend our exile plotting revenge. We spent it preparing for something else, something we discovered in the void between galaxies." New images appeared, writhing shadows at the edge of known space, things that hurt to look at directly. "There's something coming, Chancellor. Something that makes our old conflicts look like children's games. We call them the Devourers. They consume entire galaxies, leaving nothing but quantum foam in their wake. They'll reach the Milky Way within a century." The Council exchanged glances of disbelief, but Chen continued. "We've been building defenses, developing weapons, preparing for a war that will determine if anything in this galaxy survives. We didn't return because of your trespass. We returned because if we don't work together, none of us will exist in 100 years. Convenient, General Maxer spat. Create an imaginary threat to justify your invasion. Chen's eyes hardened. General, we could have returned in force. We could have reclaimed our worlds with fire and plasma. Instead, I'm standing here talking, offering you a choice. She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. Would you like a demonstration of what we've learned in exile? Without waiting for an answer, she transmitted coordinates to their displays. Send a probe to these coordinates. Use your best sensors. See what we've been fighting out there in the dark. The council watched in tense silence as a probe was dispatched. When it arrived at the coordinates, what it found defied their understanding of physics. A massive scar in space itself, as if reality had been torn and hastily repaired. Around it floated debris, not metal or rock, but pieces of space-time itself, crystallized and frozen. 3 months ago, Chen explained, a devourer scout breached our perimeter. It took everything we had to stop it. Weapons that burn probability itself, shields that exist in 17 dimensions. That scar is what remains when 2 galaxies' worth of energy is released in a single moment. The sensor data was undeniable. The energy readings were off every known scale, and the space-time distortions would take millennia to heal. Whatever had happened there was beyond anything the Confederation could achieve. Chancellor Vexus finally spoke, his voice subdued. If this threat is real, why didn't you warn us sooner? Would you have believed us? Chen asked simply. You just voted us out of existence. Your people think we're fairy tales meant to frighten children. We needed you to know we were real first. Now comes the harder part, convincing you we're not your enemy anymore. General Maxer wasn't convinced. This could all be fabrication, elaborate deception to lower our defenses. Chen nodded. You're right to be suspicious, General. Your ancestors learned that humans can be dangerous when cornered. But let me show you something else. The displays changed to show human ships, not warships, but vessels carrying families, children, entire communities. We're not just a military fleet. We're 10 million souls who've spent generations in the void. We have children who've never seen a planet's surface, elderly who still remember Earth's blue skies. We're tired of running, tired of fighting. We want to come home. Home to worlds we've inhabited for millennia, Vexus challenged. Home to a galaxy big enough for all of us, Chen corrected. We're not asking you to abandon the colonies. We're asking for coexistence. There are enough worlds for everyone. And if the Devourers come, we'll need every inhabited planet as a stronghold. The council debated for hours while Chen waited patiently. Finally, Ambassador Threek asked the crucial question. What exactly are you proposing, Admiral? Chen straightened. A summit. 1 month from now, at the old neutral station in the Vermilion Nebula. Bring your best scientists, your military leaders, your philosophers. We'll share everything. Our technology, our intelligence about the Devourers, our plans for defense. In return, we want recognition as a sovereign species and permission to establish new colonies in uninhabited systems. And if we refuse? General Maxer demanded. Chen's expression was sad but determined. Then we'll do what humans have always done, survive on our own. We'll fight the Devourers alone, and when they break through our defenses, you'll face them without our help or our weapons. And General, with respect, you won't last a day. The transmission ended, leaving the council in stunned silence. Over the following weeks, strange things began happening across Confederation space. Hidden caches of advanced technology were anonymously delivered to research stations. Detailed warnings about spatial anomalies appeared in navigation databases, preventing several disasters. Medical data that cured 3 incurable diseases was uploaded to hospital networks. The humans were demonstrating their capabilities without firing a single shot. The summit at Vermilion Station was the most significant gathering in galactic history. When the human delegation arrived, they came not in warships but in a vessel called Hope's Dawn, a ship that seemed to bend light around it, beautiful and impossible. Admiral Chen led a delegation that included scientists, artists, historians, and most surprisingly, children. Why bring children to a military summit? Chancellor Vexus asked. Because this isn't about war, Chen replied. It's about their future. They're the ones who will live with whatever we decide here. The humans shared everything. They showed the assembled species technologies that manipulated fundamental forces. medical advances that could extend life across all species, and most importantly, detailed intelligence about the devourers. The evidence was overwhelming. Humanity had been preparing for this threat for centuries, developing weapons specifically designed to fight beings that existed partially outside normal spacetime. But what convinced the Confederation wasn't the technology or the threats. It was a presentation by Dr. Marcus Webb, an elderly human historian who had lived through the Exodus. "You want to know why we left?" he said, addressing the assembly. "It wasn't just the betrayal or the genocide attempts. It was because we realized something. Humanity at that time was too angry, too hurt to coexist peacefully. We needed time to heal, to grow, to become something better than what war had made us. We left not as an act of cowardice, but as an act of hope. Hope that one day we could return as partners, not conquerors." The vote was close, but in the end, the Confederation agreed. Humanity would be recognized, given systems to colonize, and integrated into galactic defense planning. It wasn't perfect. Trust would take generations to rebuild, but it was a beginning. 6 months later, as human and Zanari engineers worked side by side to build the first joint defense platform, a child asked Admiral Chen why humans had come back if space was so dangerous. Chen knelt beside the young Zanari, her tentacles just beginning to show adult coloration. "Because running from danger is surviving, facing it together is living, and after 25 centuries in the dark, humanity is ready to live again." The first of our assault came 3 years later, arriving sooner than predicted, but when it did, it faced not a divided galaxy but a united front. Human phase weapons worked alongside Zanari energy shields. Corvani swift strikes were coordinated with human AI systems. The battle was brutal, reality itself bending under the strain. But the line held. In the aftermath, as debris from beings that shouldn't exist floated through space, Chancellor Vexus stood beside Admiral Chen on the observation deck of the Joint Command Station. "Your ancestors were right to fear us," Chen said quietly. "Humans can be terrible in war, but they were wrong about one thing. We're even stronger in peace." Vexus's tentacles moved in what humans had learned was amusement. Perhaps the real fairy tale was thinking we could face the universe alone. Looking out at the stars where human and alien ships now patrolled together, Chen nodded. "The universe has enough dangers without us adding to them. It's time to write a different story." And so they did. Not a story of humanity's revenge or the galaxy's submission, but something rarer and more valuable. A story of redemption, cooperation, and the strength found not in standing alone, but in standing together against the dark. The fairy tale had ended. The real story had just begun.